Hi, I'm Kara, a graduate STEM communications designer. Today I'll be discussing how to create a poster presentation. Condensing your paper into a poster presentation requires that you identify the most important information and communicate it in a visual way. Most people don't sit down to read an entire poster the way that they do for a paper, so it's important to make your information easily digestible and concise while still communicating the highlights of your research. To decide what information from your paper to include in a poster, try to identify the smallest amount of information that will still let someone understand your work. For the introduction, your audience will need appropriate context and background information to understand the rest of the poster. Your hypotheses or goals of the research should be included in just a few sentences or bullet points. For the materials and methodology section, summarize the experimental setup and highlight any unique techniques that you employed. For the results and discussion section, determine which figures and tables you can use to communicate the most important takeaways from your research. Be sure to include the interpretation of your results, not just the raw data. Finally, the conclusion section should include a short list of the key takeaways and impacts of your project. Now that you've figured out what information to include on your poster, let's go over how to communicate this all visually. First, bullet points are your friend. Lists are helpful to separate main points and are often used in the introduction and conclusion. Flowcharts are great for explaining processes and methodologies. Sometimes a diagram might be more appropriate for a certain concept, so consider both and decide which will serve you better. Photos of fieldwork or a map of the region of interest will help contextualize your research and improve the visual appeal. Figures and tables are the main way to present data in a poster. You should also include a short interpretation of the data, either as a long caption or as a short text box. These tips will help you communicate your research in a visual format. Let's also discuss how to design an effective poster using these elements. First, keep in mind that English speakers are accustomed to reading left to right and top to bottom. Your poster should follow this logical flow as well. I prefer to use 3 columns, the left for introduction and methodology, the center for results, and the right for conclusions and future work. Be sure to use sufficiently large text so your poster can be read from about 5 feet away. For a 3-foot by 4-foot poster, which is the standard size, I recommend the following text sizes: 85 points for the title, 56 for the authors, 36 for the headings, 24 for the text, and 20 for the captions. Try to avoid using font sizes smaller than 18 points. Another tip is to leave plenty of white space between your sections so that the reader's eyes move naturally from one heading to the next. If the text does not fit in your text box, or if the figures are spilling over into the margins, you need to condense some of the information. It is important to use light text on a dark background or dark text on a light background. Don't go crazy with the color schemes. Your institution might have a standard template you can use that even includes school or company branding. I hope these tips help you with your next poster.